Good morning. Our topic for today is completing the accounting cycle. So for this particular topic, we should learn how to prepare worksheet, how to prepare your financial statements, how to prepare your closing entries, post-closing trial balance, and your reversing entries. So our topic will revolve around these items. Again, first, worksheet. Next, financial statements. Next, closing entries. And then we have your post-closing trial balance. And we have your reversing entries. So start now with our first topic, and that is your worksheet. So what is a worksheet? A worksheet is a multiple column form used in the adjustment and preparation, used in adjustment and preparation of financial statements. Actually, it is composed of 10 columns. And take note of the purpose of your worksheet only for your adjustment and preparation of financial statements. So how does your worksheet looks like? So your worksheet looks like this. So we have this particular, and then we have your first column here. Okay, so we assume this is your worksheet. So why do we say it is 10 columns? When we talk about 10 columns, you have 10 columns for your debit and credit. So in short, we have 5 debit columns, 5 debit columns, and 5 credit columns. So what are those 5 debit columns and 5 credit columns? So here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And each particular debit credit column pertains to a particular process in our accounting cycle. So the first column here is known as your trial balance. What is this trial balance? This pertains to your unadjusted trial balance. Next, we have your adjustments. What are these adjustments? These are your different postings for adjusting entries. Okay. And then we also have your third debit and credit column. This is known as your adjusted trial balance. Adjusted trial balance. This is your trial balance after affecting the adjustments. Okay. And the fourth and fifth debit and credit columns are known as your financial statement columns. So these are your income statement first. And then we have your balance sheet. Okay. So again, this is your worksheet. It is composed of 10 columns, which is either debit or credit. So if ever, it is composed of 5 debit column and 5 credit columns. So in short, it is composed of 5 debit and credit columns. So 10 column kasi nga 10 yung division niya. Pero kung i-divide natin siya as a debit and credit, it is composed of 5 debits and credit columns. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The first column is your trial balance. And then we have your second debit and credit column known as your adjustments. We have your third and debit columns, adjusted trial balance. Fourth debit and credit column is your income statement. And fifth debit and credit column is your balance sheet. Okay, so how about, sir, on the first particular column, what do we call that? This one. What do we call this item here? Okay, this item here is known as your account titles. So this is a listing of your account titles. So it is composed of your listing of account titles. Okay, so you list here your different account titles. On the trial balance, you provide your trial balance. On your adjustments, you pause the adjustments. Okay, so it is a multiple column form. Now, what is the use again of this multiple column form? It is used for your adjustment process and in the preparation of your financial statements. And your worksheet is a working tool. Why is it a working tool? It is only a tool to prepare your adjusted trial balance, your income statement, and your balance sheet. Why? Again, the purpose is for your adjustment and the preparation of financial statements. So your question, is a worksheet a particular accounting record such as your journal or ledger? No, a worksheet is not a journal. It is not a ledger. It is not a accounting report. It is not an accounting report. So unlike the other reports that we have already discussed before, a worksheet is not really an accounting record. It is only a tool. It is only a tool. So please take note of that. It is not an accounting record. It is not an accounting report. It is only a working tool. It is merely a device used for the preparation of your adjusted trial balance and your income statement and balance sheet. Okay, so how do we prepare your worksheet? So the first step, of course, is to enter your ledger accounts. So the first step is to enter ledger accounts. So enter all account titles. Okay, so that is on your account titles area. So dito siya. Dito nyo ilalagay yung account titles. And then, enter the balances unadjusted to the first debit and credit column. Okay, so saan yan, guys? Saan ilalagay yung balances on the unadjusted to the first debit and credit column? Dito siya. Okay, so ilalagay naman natin siya dito. Ayan. Sa trial balance column natin siya ilalagay. Okay, and then we have your third step. So what is your third step? Of course, we now enter the adjusting entries in the debit or credit column. Okay, enter the adjusting entries in the debit or credit column, particularly the second column. Okay, so you enter it here in your second column. So we just make another color for that. So we have here adjustments. Okay, so you enter the adjusting entries in the debit or credit column in your second column. And normally in entering the adjusting entries, we place letters. So what are these letters? These letters identify the debit and credit for each adjusting entry. So for example, we have one adjusting entry, let's say salaries, expense, credit, salaries, payable. Okay, that's one adjusting entry, right? Another adjusting entry, let's say depreciation expense, and then we have your accumulated depreciation. Okay, so if ever per adjusting entry, you need to supply them with a letter. So a different letter identifies the debit and credit for each adjusting entry. So for example, this adjusting entry is letter E. This adjusting entry is letter B. So that when you enter here, the salaries expense. So let's say 4,000, 4,000. So let's say salaries expense is here 4,000 and then salaries payable is here 4,000. You indicate that's letter A. Okay. Why? Because that pertains to one particular adjusting entry, which is the adjusting entry letter A. We call this process of assigning letters to your adjusting entries as keying. So it's known as keying. So guys, again, we identify a particular adjusting entry based on a letter. So each adjusting entry must be identified by a letter. So for example, here, letter A, salaries expense, salaries payable. We place it in your adjustments part. Letter A, 4K, 4K. That will be for your adjusting entry letter A. We call this process as keying, okay? So in your adjustment data, again, you just enter the adjusting entries in the debits or credit columns respectively, particularly in your second column. And you identify each adjusting entry with a letter. That particular letter will identify the debit and credit for the adjusting entries. So for example, we have here 4,000. Letter A, that pertains to adjusting entry letter A. That is your salaries expense and salaries payable. We call this process as keying. Okay. Now, after we prepare your adjustments, we have your fourth step. So what is our fourth step? Our fourth step, of course, is to prepare the adjusted trial balance. Okay, so how do we prepare your adjusted trial balance again? From your unadjusted, plus or minus your adjustments. We have your adjusted trial balance. We have your adjusted trial balance. Okay, so what color here? So ayan siya guys, adjusted trial balance. So we place our adjusted trial balance by getting the balances after effecting your adjustments to your unadjusted. So unadjusted plus or minus your adjusted adjustments, then we have your adjusted trial balance. And then we have your income statement and your balance sheet. Income statement and your balance sheet. So preparation of income statement. So in the preparation of your income statement, only forward accounts pertaining to revenues and expenses. Okay, so this is your adjusted trial balance, right? Okay, so let's say this is the worksheet, a portion of the worksheet. We have your adjusted trial balance, and then we have here your income statement. Okay, so from your adjusted trial balance, of course, it will contain different amounts and different account titles. Only forward from your adjusted trial balance, only forward from your adjusted trial balance certain accounts, okay? So only forward here the accounts pertaining to revenues and expenses. Only forward the accounts pertaining to revenues and expenses. So we place from your adjusted trial balance items of revenues and expenses on the income statement, okay? So of course, your revenues are placed in the debit. Revenues are placed in the credit, sorry. Your revenues are placed in the credit and your expenses are placed in the debit, okay? Because why? Revenue has the normal balance of credit. Expense has the normal balance of debit. So again, if ever we have here your total credits, it means that is your revenue. Total debits on your income statement, that means that is your expense. So our problem now is how to determine the profit or loss in the worksheet. Okay, if debit is greater than credit or debit is lesser than credit. So what is debit again? Expenses. And credit pertains to revenue. Okay, so if debit is greater than credit, it means this portion of the income statement or the debit portion of the income statement is greater than the credit portion. So your expenses your expenses is greater than your revenue. If your expenses is greater than your revenue, we call this one a loss. Okay, so this is a loss. But if your debit is lesser than your credit, so meaning your expense is lesser than your revenue, this is a profit. Okay, and so in case guys, soon in preparation of your worksheet, you will see that your debit and credit columns will not equal in your income statement. That is because of your profit or loss. So if your debit is greater than your credit, it means there is a loss. Okay, so where do we place a loss? Loss is placed on the credit side. Credit side. So if ever, di ba, ito, wait. Ito yung ating total expenses. Ito naman yung ating total revenue. Okay. So assuming, guys, yung total expenses natin is 90,000, tapos yung total revenue lang natin is 80,000, tama? So our debit, which is expenses of 90, and our credit, which is revenue of 80,000, is greater. Okay, so debit is greater than credit, so loss. So where do we place our loss? On the credit side. Kasi kailangan natin i-equalize yan. So ilalagay nyo dito, net loss, 10,000. Ayan siya. Okay, so loss is placed in your credit side. Loss is placed on your credit side. Okay? So I hope we're clear here regarding the loss. How about a profit? So there is a profit if your debit is lesser than your credit. So let's say this is your income statement column, So we have here our total na. So let's say this is 90,000 and our credit is 100,000. So debit is 90, which represents the expenses. Credit is revenue, 100,000. So lesser siya, ang tawag natin dyan ay profit. There is a profit. So how much is the profit? 10,000 also. Where do we place a profit? Profit is placed on the debit side. Profit is placed on the debit side. Sir, why do we place on the debit side the profit? Because we need to equalize. So pag nilagay mo dito kasi yung 10,000, magiging 100 yan, magiging 100 yan. So, ilalagay mo dito, net profit, 10,000. Net profit, 10,000. Okay? So, I hope we're clear in the preparation of your income statement. What do we forward again in your income statement, in your worksheet? That is only your revenues and your expenses, items of revenues and expenses. So after your items of revenues and expenses, we look as to the difference between the two. If the debit is greater than the credit, it means that the expenses is greater than the revenue. Then there is a loss. But if the expenses is lesser than the revenue, then there is a profit. Where do we place our profit? In the columns on your worksheet. If there is a profit, we place it on your debit side. If there is a loss, we place them on the credit side. Okay, I hope we're clear here regarding the income statement. So income statement, in the income statement column, okay, debit represents net profit, credit represents net loss. Okay, so as to balance, debit represents net profit, credit represents net loss. Okay, we proceed on your balance sheet item. So here are the different columns. So this is the adjusted trial balance. We have here your net income or net loss income statement. Tanggalin na lang natin siya. Income statement. And then we have your balance sheet. Okay. So from your adjusted trial balance, we will only place the assets, liabilities, and equity. So from your adjusted trial balance, we will only forward assets, liab, and equity. Okay? So we forward the three items, asset, liab, and equity. Now, uh, after preparation of this, the asset, liab, and equity, debit, and credit columns will not equal. So hindi equal yung debit and credit natin dito sa balance sheet. Why? What's the difference? The difference pertains to the income or loss. Okay. So in the balance sheet columns, profit or loss is treated this way. If there is a profit, place it on the credit column. If there is a loss, place it on the debit column. So in short, from the income statement, we also forward to your balance sheet, okay? So from your income statement, we forward to your balance sheet the net income or profit or net loss, okay? So from your income statement, we forward your net income or profit or your net loss to the balance sheet. And how do we treat it? If ever it is a profit, you forward it to the credit column. Clear? If that is a loss, you forward it on the debit column. So kanina, in the income statement column, pag ang kulang ay debit, net profit. Pag ang kulang ay credit, net loss. This pertains to the balance only. Now, since we already know the balance and we know whether it is net profit or net loss, we try to forward it to your balance sheet. So in forwarding the item of your income statement to the balance sheet, the net profit should be added on your credit column and the loss should be placed on your debit column. Okay? Profit, credit column, loss, debit column. Okay? So I hope we are clear regarding the preparation of your worksheet. Take note, guys, what are forwarded in your worksheet? What are the items forwarded forwarded to the balance sheet? The items forwarded are the assets, liabilities, and equity from your adjusted trial balance, and the net income or net loss from your income statement. Again, what items are forwarded to the balance sheet in your worksheet? These are the items from the adjusted trial balance, the items of asset, liabilities, and equity, and the net income or loss in the income statement. Okay? So, ilan lahat? Apat. Assets, liabilities, equity, net income, profit, or net loss. I hope we are clear regarding the preparation of your worksheet. So, after knowing your worksheet, again, the purpose is to help you in your adjusting process and in the preparation of your financial statements. So we proceed now to your financial statements. Although we have discussed this already, we will just have a quick recap on your financial statements. So financial statements are your instruments to report the activity of the business, whether it is operating effectively and efficiently or not through your financial statements. So this is the end process of accounting. So this is the report of your accounting process. the financial statements. And in AA 100, we will only prepare two financial statements. That is your income statement and your balance sheet. So what is the new term for your income statement and your balance sheet again? Income statement is known as your statement of comprehensive income. But if ever, you can also prepare statement of financial performance. Okay, why? Because you can opt to prepare one financial statement, which is your statement of comprehensive income again. This is your revenue, expenses, and the items of your OCI, diba? This is your comprehensive income. But when we talk about statement of financial performance, it is only your revenues less your expenses. Okay, so no items of OCI there. But if there is an item of OCI, we call it statement of comprehensive income. So you can just use a statement of financial performance or a statement of comprehensive income. How about balance sheet? What is the new term for balance sheet? Statement of financial position. Okay, so your income statement shows the profit or loss for the period. While your statement of financial position shows the balances of your permanent accounts, shows the balances of the permanent accounts. At a particular date. Okay, so how do we prepare your financial statements? So in your preparation of financial statements, first you create a heading. You create a heading. So what is the heading? So for your heading, we have here your income statement and your balance sheet. How do we create your heading? For your income statement, the heading is this way. So the name of the company. Then after the name of the company, you place your statement of financial performance, or you can make use of statement of comprehensive income. And we have here for the period ended, and then the date of the period. Sir, why do we use for the period ended? Because it is the profit or loss for the period, kaya for the period ended. Next, balance sheet. How do we prepare your heading? Of course, the name of the corporation or the company. And then we have here your statement of financial position. And then we have here as of the period, the date. Okay, so as of blank period. So why? Because it shows the balances at a particular date. Kaya nga as of. Kaya siya as of. Okay, so in preparation of your financial statements, we create first a heading. So we have a different heading for your income statement and a different heading for your balance sheet also. So what are the headings on your income statement? We have your name of the company, and then statement of financial performance, and for the period ended. Take note, we use for the period here. In the balance sheet, we use as of. Okay, so balance sheet, name of the company, statement of financial position, as of the period, blah blah. Okay, so I hope we're clear here regarding the preparation of your heading. Now, after the preparation of your heading, you create the items of the FS from the adjusted trial balance. So you create the items of the FS from the adjusted trial balance. When we say create, you just forward the balances. So for your income statement, we have here your revenues, and then you deduct expenses. So you will just list down the expenses. So let's say we have here your different expenses. You list it down and then you get the total. So ayan siya, yan yung mga expenses, yan yung total niya. This is your net profit or loss. Net profit or loss. And then on your balance sheet, we have here your asset and we have here your liabilities and equity. Okay. Asset, liabilities, and equity. So you list down on this particular portion. So list down all assets. Tapos magkakaroon ka dito ng total assets. Okay? So you list down the assets. We have your total assets. And then you also list down the liabilities and equity in this portion. So liabilities first. And then we have here your total liabilities. And then we have your equity. Tapos total equity. Okay? Total equity. Tapos ilalagay mo dito total liabilities and equity. Total liabilities and equity. Okay. So guys, how do we compute for your ending equity again? Your ending equity is equal to your investments. So we have your beginning, of course, beginning equity plus investment less withdrawal less profit less loss. Ending equity. Okay. So what do we call this format of your balance sheet? What do we call this format of your balance sheet? So this balance sheet format is known as account form. It is known as account form. So why is it known as your account form? It is known as account form because you show in account here the asset on one side and the liabilities and equity on the other side. So this account form of balance sheet is presented in horizontal format with information in two columns beside each other. Okay. So if ever two columns siya, merong asset, may liabilities and equity, account form. Nasundan? Meron naman tayong tinatawag na report form. Ano naman tong report form? Dito, one column lang siya. Andito yung assets, tas total. Andito rin yung liabilities and equity, tapos total. Ayan. So dito, isa lang talaga siya. Diretso lang siya. So it is in a vertical orientation and one column. Okay? So this is known as report form. But here, dalawang column. Tapos normally horizontal siya kasi nga dalawa. Mag-i-span siya ng dalawa. We have your account of asset and account of liability and equity. While in your report form, isang diretso lang yan. This is known as your report form because it is presented in a report format in which it is in a vertical orientation and it consists only of one column. It consists only of one column. That is your column of assets, liabilities, and equity. Ito total lang yan, total assets and total liabilities and equity. Okay? So let's have this as an example for our worksheet and for our adjusting first. So we have here the ABC services and adjusted trial balance. And we are also provided with this adjusting information. So we have here your adjusting information. First one, the office supplies inventory determined by physical count was 620. So our official office supplies inventory is 1,280 per our unadjusted trial balance. We need to remove 620 because we only have we need to have ending balance of 620. So how much should we remove? 660. So for number one, our adjusting entry will be office supplies expense. Okay, I'll just change my pen. So it is office supplies expense. And then a credit to office supplies inventory. So how did we compute that? It is 1280 less 620. So 660. Next, number two. The balance in the prepaid rent account was for 3 months, rent paid on November 1. So we have here prepaid rent 1.5, that is for 3 months. So how much was already expired? 2 months. So we have your rent expense, credit prepaid rent. So we have here 1.5 times 2 over 3. So why 2 over 3? 2 months expired, and that's good for 3 months. So we have here 1,000, 1,000. Number 3, unpaid salaries earned by employees amounted to 1.3. So this is an accrual. So we have here salaries expense. And we can use accounts payable na lang, 1,300. Number 4, insurance expired during the period, 600. So we debit insurance expense. Credit prepaid insurance. Amounting to 600. Next, number 5. Can I just transfer this one here? Okay. Number 5. The balance in an earned fees account consisted of advance payment of 700 for law services to be performed next year. The remaining advance payment were generated in this period. So we have here an earned fees of 1,800, an earned fees of 1,800. So this unearned fees of 1,800, what will we do? So sabi dito sa problem, 700 na lang daw yung hindi pa natin na-earn. So kailangan natin yan bawasan. Dapat ang ending niya ay 700. So ang gagawin natin is debit unearned fees, credit fees revenue. Okay. So unearned fees and fees revenue, 1,800 less 700, we have here 1,100. Number 6, estimated depreciation on office equipment, 800. So we debit depreciation expense. And then we have here accumulated depreciation. Office equipment, how much? 800. Number 7, accrued interest on bills payable due on January 15 was 210. So we will record an interest on the bills payable, so which is debit, interest expense, credit, interest payable. Instead of using interest payable, can we just use accounts payable instead? So that at least mas madali natin siya mai-total mamaya. So accounts payable amounting to 210. Next, travel expenses incurred by employees but unpaid were 220. So we will have an entry again, number 8, travel expenses, and then accounts payable, 220. Okay. So we're done with our adjusting entries. We're done with our adjusting entries. And now we're ready to prepare for our worksheet. Guys, can you still see the items even if it is zoomed out like that? Can you still
Yes.
see it? Okay, okay. So we can now prepare our worksheet. So let's prepare first our worksheet. I'll just create our worksheet. Okay, so let's say this is our worksheet. So this is the account title. This is the uh, unadjusted trial balance. You have here your adjustments. You have your adjusted trial balance, income statement, and your balance sheet. So the first thing that we need to make is, of course, we list down the different account titles. So let's list down the different account titles. Let's just zoom this in. Okay. So the following are the account titles. We have here your cash at bank, and then we have your accounts receivable. We have your prepaid rent. We also have your prepaid insurance. We have your office supplies inventory. And then we have your office equipment. And then we have your accumulated depreciation, accounts payable, unearned fees, and then we have your bills payable, owner's capital, we have your owner's drawing, we also have your fees revenue, and then salary expense, rent expense, telephone, research, travel. So I'll just extend these items here. Okay. So, ayan siya. Nakikita nyo pa rin ba pagka ganyan? Or masyado na siyang maliliit? Okay. So, ayan. Cash at bank is 9,880. So, ilalagay na natin yan. Nasa debit dapat yan. So, we have here debit and credit. Okay. So, let's place down the amounts. So, cash and bank, 9,880. Ilalagay lang natin yung amounts niya. 9,880. We have your accounts receivable of 4,310. And then we have your prepaid rent of 1,500. Prepaid insurance of 1,320. Office supplies of 1,280. Office equipment of 4,000. Accumulated depreciation of 2,400. Unearned fees, like accounts payable at 630. Unearned fees of 1,800. Bills payable of 3,000. Owner's capital of 10,000. Owner's drawing of 36,000. Then we have your fees revenue of 79,320. We have your salary expense of 25,200. Then we have 5,000 for rent expense, 2,490 for telephone expense. For research expense, we have 4,310. And for travel expense, we have 1,860. Okay. When we get the total of the debit and credit, we just total it. So compute. So this is 97,150, both for debit and credit. Now we prepare our adjusting entries. I'll just copy these adjusting entries so that mas madali natin siyang makita. Okay. So, ayan. So we have here your adjusting entries. So our first adjusting entries is a debit to office supplies expense of 660 and a credit to office supplies inventory. So first, we need to place it on your office supplies. Let's make it as color blue. So we have here office supplies inventory. Ayan, dyan siya. Ilalagay natin siya dyan. So kung napansin niyo yung office supplies inventory, nabawas ng 660. So meron siyang credit. So ilagay natin siya sa credit. So debit, credit, 660. Now, we go back and we have office supplies expense. Do we have office supplies expense in our entries? None, di ba? Wala tayong account. So magdagdag tayo dito ng office supplies expense. Dadagdagan natin yan. Magkano yun? 660. 660. So we also forward an amount, office supplies expense, 660. Okay? And we can mark that as 1, number 1. Okay. So, kini natin siya as number 1. Sir, bakit number 1? Number 1 kasi yung ginamit natin kanina. But actually, dapat letters yan. Pero since ang ginamit natin is number 1, we use number 1. So, okay na tong number 1. Number 2, rent expense, 1,000. Prepaid rent, 1,000. So, we need to extend on rent expense. You debit it. So, you just debit rent expense. So, rent expense, dagdagan daw natin ng 1,000. Tapos, yung prepaid rent, babawasan. Naka-credit siya, di ba? So, you place on the credit of prepaid rent, 1,000. Okay. So, that is key number 2. So, number 2. Next, number 3. We debit salaries expense and credit accounts payable. So, dadagdagan daw natin yung salaries expense natin. So, asan yung salaries expense? Dito. And then, our accounts payable. Okay. So, how much? 1,300. So, 1,300. 1,300. Guys, sundan nyo lang yung entry natin as a debit and credit. Tapos doon nyo lang din siya ipapass or ipapause. So, this is key number 3. Next, we have your insurance expense and prepaid insurance. So, we look as to our account title. Do we have any insurance expense in our account title? None. So, we need to place here insurance expense. So, we add another title, insurance expense amounting to 600. And then prepaid insurance, we will credit it at 600. Okay, so we will just color it. Yeah. So this is key number 4. So we're done in number 4. We go to number 5. In your number 5, we debit unearned fees of 1,100 and a credit to fees revenue of 1 also. Okay, so 1,100 on your unearned fees, it is a debit, right? So unearned fees, debit, 1. And then fees revenues, credit, 1. Okay, so this is key number 5. Next, key number 6. So depreciation expense and accumulated depreciation. So the amount of our depreciation is 800. So we look into your account title. Do we have depreciation expense? None. So dadagdagan na naman natin yan ng isang title. Depreciation expense. Amounting to 800. And then accumulated depreciation, 800. Ayan. So kasi 'di ba, ang nakalagay diyan debit on depreciation expense. So ayan, dinebit natin siya. And a credit to accumulated depreciation. So ayan. Okay? That is key number 6. Oh, sorry. Key number 6. Next, key number 7. So in our key number 7, we have interest expense and accounts payable. Do we have any interest here? None. So we need to recognize another account, interest expense. So how much? We have 210. And we need to add up on our accounts payable, 210. So ang mangyayari, kailangan na natin palitan yung value nito. Gagawin na natin siyang 1,510. Sir, but 1,510? 1,3 kanina, di ba? Tapos 210 ngayon. Ayan. This is key number 7. So ilagay mo dito, 7. So this is 3. This is also 7. Okay? Next. Travel expenses accounts payable, 220. So do we have travel expense here? Meron. So kailangan lang natin siyang dagdagan ng 220. So it's a debit of 220. So we just need to debit it at 220 also. And another accounts payable. So 1,510 plus 220 will give us 1,730. So palitan na naman natin yan. 1,730 na siya. So this is key number 8. Ayan. So tapos na natin yung ating adjusting part. So napansin ba natin dun sa unadjusted trial balance, anong ginawa lang natin? Kinopya lang natin talaga yung total niya based on the unadjusted trial balance. And then on your adjusting, we just posted the different adjusting entries and we tried to key them based on their numbers. So we use key number 1 until number 8. And also, para mas makita ninyo yung effect niya, kinulayan ko ng blue yung mga may adjusting. Kinulayan ko ng blue yung may mga adjusting. Okay. Next, we have your adjusted trial balance. We will make now your adjusted trial balance. So we have here debit and credit. So how do we make your adjusted trial balance? We just pause from your unadjusted trial balance the adjustments. So cash at bank, may adjustment ba? May adjustment ba ang ating cash at bank? Wala. So this is still 9,880. AR, may adjustment ba? Wala. It's still 4,310. Prepaid trend, may adjustment ba? Yes. So if we have a debit of 1,500 and a credit to 1,000, how much is the remainder? 500. Prepaid insurance, you have a debit of 1,320 and a credit of 600. 1,320 less 600, we have 720. Next, office supplies. 1,280 less 660. 1,280 less 660 will give us 620. Office equipment, do we have a change? None, is still at 4,000. Accumulated depreciation, 2,400 credit and 800 credit. So 24 plus 800, 3,200. Accounts payable, we have initially a credit of 630 plus 1,730. So 630 plus 1,730 will give us a total of 2,360. Next, we have your unearned fees. Your unearned fees is initially a credit of 1,800 and we have here a debit of 1,000. How much then is the balance? 1,800 less 1,100 will give us a balance of 700. 700. And since that is a credit, so we place it on the credit side, 700. Next, bills payable. Do we have a change? None, is still at 3,000. Owner's capital. Do we have a change? None, is still at 10,000. Owner's drawing. Do we have a change? None, is still at 36,000. Fees revenue. Do we have a change? Yes. So from credit of 79,320, we have additional credit of 1,100. So 79,320 plus 1,100 will give us 80,420. Next, we have your salary expense. From 25,200, 25,200 plus 1,300, we have 26,500. Rent expense, 5,000 plus 1,000 will give us 6,000. Telephone expense, is there a change? None, is still at 2,490. Research, is there a change? None, is still at 4,310. Travel expense, 1,860 plus 220. 1,860 plus 220 will give us 2,080. Next, office supplies, we have here 660. Insurance at 600. Depreciation at 800. And interest of 210. So we get the total. So we just total it. We have 99,680. So our total is 99,680. Did you get the same? Okay. So I hope you get the same amount, 99,680. Now we proceed to our income statement. So for our income statement, what will we forward? We will forward only the items of revenues and expenses. So ano yung mga revenues natin? Fees revenue. So yan yung i-forward natin. And then we have here your salaries expense. We also forward that. Rent, we forward that. Telephone expense, research, travel, office supplies, insurance, depreciation, and interest. Okay. So we just forward these items to your income statement: 80,420, 26,500, 6,000, 2,490, 4,310, 2,080, 660, 600, 800, and 210. Okay, so sabi natin kanina sa income statement, ang kailangan lang talaga nating i-forward dyan ay yung ating mga income statement items. Okay, so we total it. Of course, this is 80,420. This item, we total it. 26,500 plus 6,000 plus 2,490 plus 4,310 plus 2,080 plus 660 plus 600 plus 800 plus 210 will give us 43,650. Ano yung kulang? Debit, di ba? Debit yung kulang. Pag debit yung kulang, anong tawag natin dyan? Net income. So magkano net income natin? 8420 less 43,650 will give us 36,770. 36,770. Okay? So we already computed our net income, 36,770. After that, we can also prepare our balance sheet. What will you forward in your balance sheet? We will forward the items of your assets, liabilities, and equity. So we will forward the cash at bank. We will forward the AR, the prepaid rent, the prepaid insurance, the office supplies expense, office supplies inventory, the office equipment, the accumulated depreciation, the accounts payable, the unearned fees, the bills payable, the owner's capital, the owner's drawing, the owner's drawing, and of course, your net income. Pag net income, saan ilalagay? Sa credit side naman na siya. So we will just forward the items. So we have your 9,880 for cash. AR, we have 4,310. 500 for prepaid rent, 720 for prepaid insurance, 620 for office supplies inventory, and then we have your office equipment of 4,000, and then we have your accumulated depreciation, which is 3,200, 2,360 for accounts payable, 700 for unearned fees. For bills payable, we have 3,000, owner's capital of 10,000, owner's drawing of 36,000, and 36,770 as net income. So we compute for the balance. $56,030. $56,030. Okay. Did you get the same? 56,030. I hope so. Okay, 56,030. So nasundan ba ninyo yung process ng ating worksheet? So inisa-isa natin yan from an adjusted trial balance. Nag-prepare tayo ng adjusting entries. Tapos pinos natin siya. Meron tayong keying. So yung keying na yon based on our keys into our adjusting entries. So we keyed them from 1 to 8. And then we prepare your adjusted trial balance from your unadjusted trial balance and your adjusting entry. And then from your adjusted trial balance, we forward the accounts. So in your income statement, what accounts are forwarded? Only the revenues and your expenses. For your balance sheet, what accounts are to be forwarded? We have your asset, your liability, your equity, including the net income or loss. So sabi natin, di ba, yung net income sa income statement nasa debit. Pagdating sa balance sheet, naka-credit. Nasundan? Ang loss sa income statement naka-debit. Naka-credit. Pagdating sa balance sheet, naka-debit. So pag net loss naman yan, nandito siya sa credit. Pagdating sa balance sheet, naka-debit. Okay? So ingat dyan sa net income and net loss sa ating worksheet. So I hope you understood the worksheet by now. by this example, okay? So again, what's the purpose of our worksheet? The purpose of our worksheet is to assist in our adjusting process and in the preparation of your financial statements. So by then, you just get the values of our items here in your income statement and balance sheet, and we can already prepare your income statement and your balance sheet financial statements, okay? So that's for our worksheet, including the preparation of your financial statements. We proceed to our next topic, which is your closing entries. So what about our closing entries? What do we make out of your closing entries? In your closing entries, the company transfer the temporary account balances to the owner's equity account, okay? The company transfers the balances of temporary accounts in the equity, okay? So the company transfers the balances of the temporary accounts in the equity. So we just close the temporary accounts. So what are these temporary accounts? First, we have your revenues. Then we have your expenses. Then we have also your drawings. Okay. So what are your steps in closing entries? Steps in closing entries. So first, close revenue accounts to income summary. Second, close expense to income summary. Third, close income summary to owner's equity. Fourth, you close drawings to owner's equity. Okay. We make use of this. Okay. Gamitin natin yung example natin kanina. Ayan, nakikita nyo ba yung owner's drawing? 36,000 andyan, tapos may mga fees revenue. So, gawin natin yung 4 steps. So, step 1, we close the revenue to income summary. So, what is our revenue? Fees revenue. Magkano yung fees revenue natin dyan? 80,420. So, we debit fees revenue, we credit income summary. Sir, why do we debit to fees revenue? We need to close it. Guys, when we say closing, we need to zero out the temporary accounts. So when we say zero out, tanggalin mo siya. So para ma-zero mo yung 80,420, bawasan mo rin siya ng 80,420. So debit fees revenue and then income summary, 80,420. Next, step number 2. We need to close the expense to income summary. O, tignan natin yung mga expense natin. Andyan lahat, di ba? We have salaries expense, we have your rent expense, we have your telephone expense, research expense, travel expense, blah, blah. So we just need to close them. So expense has a normal balance of debit. So to zero it out, you need to credit it. So what do? We debit income summary, and then we credit the different expense. So we have your salary, rent, telephone, research, travel, office supplies, insurance, depreciation, and interest expense. Okay. So how much is the balance of our salaries? So we have your salaries amounting to 26,500. And then we have your rent, 6,000. Telephone of 2,490. Research of 4,310. travel expenses of 2,080, office supplies expense of 660, insurance of 600, depreciation of 800, and interest of 210. Total of 43,650. Okay. Guys, the values of revenues and expense that will be closed should be based on the adjusted trial balance. So, kung papansinin nyo, saan natin nakuha yung mga values na yan? Yung 8420 nasa adjusted trial balance. Yung salaries hanggang interest galing rin yan sa adjusted trial balance. So, ang total yan ay 43,650. And then, we need to close the income summary to your owner's equity. So, step 3. So, ano ba yung balance ng income summary natin? So, we have here income summary, 8420 and then 43,650. How much is the balance? 36,770. And that is on the credit. So, kailangan natin yang i-debit. So, ang gagawin mo, income summary. Where do we close it? Close the income summary to owner's equity. So, income summary and then owner's capital. So, how much? 36,770. Okay. And the last step, we close the drawings to owner's equity. We look back. How much is our drawings? So, drawings natin, 36,000. 36,000. So, tanggalin natin daw yon. So, how do we make our entry? We debit owner's capital. We credit owner's drawing. Okay? How much? 36,000. 36,000. Okay? So, ayan, ganyan yung ating closing entries. You just close the revenue, close the expense, and close the drawing. So, why do we mean closing entries? Because we zero out the values. We zero out the values. And what do we zero out again? Only the temporary accounts. Temporary accounts. And what are the temporary accounts? You have your revenues, expenses, and your drawings. Revenues, expenses, and drawings. Okay? And after that, you can already prepare a post-closing trial balance. How do we prepare your post-closing trial balance again? Post-closing trial balance. Your post-closing trial balance will only list the permanent accounts. Why? Because this is prepared after closing entries. Okay? So it is prepared after closing entries. So in short, wala na matitira doon kundi yung ating asset, liabilities, and equity na lang. Okay? Asset, liabilities, and equity. And last, we have your reversing entries. Okay. Diba, sabi natin, ang last naman na step talaga is post-closing trial balance. But we have an optional step. This is your reversing entries. Optional step. This is your reversing entries. So what do we do in your reversing entries? We reverse certain adjusting entries. So only reverse certain adjusting entries. So what do we reverse? We have only 3 entries that will be reversed. Accruals, prepayments, recorded using expense method, and then we have your unearned income, recorded using income method. Sir, why do we reverse? Why do we reverse? We reverse so to simplify the recording of our transactions. So the purpose is to simplify recording. Okay, so why do we simplify the recording? So for example, for accruals, this is your adjusting entry. So what is our example of adjusting entry a while back with your accrual? So ito, halimbawa, travel expenses and accounts payable. So that is our adjusting entry. So travel expenses and then accounts payable, 220. If you will make a reversing entry, you can reverse it as accounts payable and travel expenses. Sir, bakit ganyan? Reverse nga eh. Bagbaliktarin mo na uli siya. So, kung dati dinebit mo siya, tapos credit mo, ngayon naman, i-credit or i-debit mo siya. So, yung travel expenses naka-debit, i-credit mo siya. Yung accounts payable naka-debit, tawag dito, i-debit mo naman siya. Okay. So, that's your reversing entries. So that you will make your entry, so if you will make your journal entry, hindi mo na siya titignan na kailangan mo pang bawasan yung accounts payable mo. So, ang gagawin mo na lang, travel expenses and cash, 220. So, hindi mo na tinignan na may accounts payable ka pa pala. So, diniretso mo na lang siya. So, kung papansinin niyo, magzi-zero out naman yan. So, parang ito na lang din yung kakalabasan niya. Pero dito naman kasi, parang yan din ang kakalabasan niya. Okay. Tanggalin muna natin yung first. Okay. So, if there is a reversing entry, ito yung mangyayari. This year yan eh. This year. Previous year. Okay. So, yan yung mangyayari if there is a reversing entry. So, look as to the effect. Diba? Parang accounts payable and cash lang siya. Clear? Okay. But if there's no reversing entry, ang mangyayari ganito lang. Travel expense, accounts payable, 220. So assuming binayaran niya na, ang gagawin niya naman is accounts payable, cash, 220. Basically, it's the same. Basically, it's the same. Yun nga lang, hindi mo na kasi iisipin dun sa entry mo na may kailangan pala akong bayarang accounts payable. You just debit it to expense. But since it is reversed, mag-zero out siya. Okay? So some entities do this, some entities do not. But actually, if I were you, I would rather do not make use of reversing entries because it does not actually simplify kasi nga mas marami ka pang entries na gagamitin or gagawin. Pero nasa inyo naman yan kung magre-reverse kayo or hindi. So, what is the purpose again? To simplify the recording of subsequent transaction related to the adjusting entry. So, from the adjusting entry, there is another transaction. Mas madali na lang daw yung entries niya. Pero nasa inyo yan. So, what are the adjusting entries again? Or what are the adjusting entries that is needed to be reversed? We have your accruals, prepayments recorded using expense, and we have your unearned income recorded using the income method. Okay, question. When do we make your reversing entries? When do we make your reversing entries? Okay. When do we make your reversing entries? We make your reversing entries at the beginning of the next accounting period. So when do we make, when to make the reversing entries at the beginning of the next accounting period. At the beginning of the next accounting period. Okay? So that's it as to the completion of our servicing business accounting cycle. So we started from worksheet and we're down to reversing entries. Okay? Anyway, we had a clear discussion of this in our intro to your accounting cycle, and I hope you still remember those items. Thank you.